Hello, everybody. Happy June 5th, 2020. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, we'll be talking about my favorite side of the football, the defensive side, the defensive coordinator for Glastonbury. His name, Peter Ladas. Peter, thanks so much for being able to come on today.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me. This is great. Everything you do, you've been doing these past couple of weeks has been awesome. Really enjoyed watching the interviews with all the players and great coaches that have been on here. And it's been really fun, and I'm glad to be on it. Thank you for having me.
Who was your favorite interview thus far that you've watched?
Favorite interview? Oh, my God. I would have to go to either, I would say, Eric Becker or Mike Eagle.
Okay. Eagle was good. I'm not going to lie to you, but Becker, he kind of won it over with the whole Food Man shoe staff.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting that.
No, he's a creative guy, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people, both yourself saying that, also the likes of Coach Eagle too. He spoke very highly of Becker, but also said he's not like other NFL or not NFL, but not other like high school coaches.
Yeah.
Very unique in a positive way.
Yeah, he's one of a kind, that's for sure.
So, Coach, before we get into your time with Glastonbury, just kind of take me into your coaching background, kind of the journey for yourself.
Well, I started off at Berlin High School, coached freshman JV and varsity. Had the chance to be mentored by a lot of great coaches there. Three guys in particular spent a lot of time with me. First one, obviously, our head coach, John Caffadice. My uncle spent a lot of time with him and learned a lot, still learn a lot from him to this day about the game, about teaching, building relationships with kids, and how to build a successful program from the bottom up. Rob Levesque, who's currently the DC at Southington High School, was our DC there in Berlin, and he spent those 5 years with me teaching me a lot about defense, a lot about X's and O's, teaching kids, building culture on the defensive side of the ball. I learned a whole lot about football from him, and he was just a fantastic mentor to me. And Rocky Gagliardi was another one who spent a lot of time with me. He's currently at Southern Connecticut State University. Got a chance to learn a lot from him, hear a lot of his stories. He's been all over the place, Plainville, New Britain, has a large coaching background. So learning from those three guys in Berlin for 5 years was an incredible experience. Had a chance to build a relationship with a lot of great kids in that school. I went to Berlin High School, and so I really connected with those kids and had a great time with them over those 5 years. From there, went to Coggin-Trog High School for 3 years as the defensive coordinator. Had the chance to learn from another great mentor, Steve Kroos, for my first year. He went on to become the OC at Anna Maria College. And then the following year, I got a chance to learn from Eric Becker, who took over as the head coach for the next 2 years. Learned a lot about building culture from Eric, how to build that relationship even further with kids, and how to really just change culture from creating something that a town has never really had before. Building culture at Coggin-Trog was fun. Had some great kids there, really great football players. Still have a great relationship with a lot of the kids on that roster to this day. They got a lot of talent coming up. I'm a big Coggin-Trog football fan. Had a whole lot of growth there. Really valuable experience at that school. And then last year was my first year at Glastonbury High School, and personally, I find myself being in a great position as a young defensive coach. I have the chance to learn from three great mentors. Our first one is Eric Hennessy, our head coach. As good of a football coach as there is in the state, has college experience, high school experience all over the country. Been awesome to learn from him for the past year. And then two great coaches on my defensive side of the ball. The first one is named Mark Stout, an arena football coach in the offseason. A whole wealth of experience, has been all over the map, and I've gotten to learn so much from him and heard so many stories about his experiences, not just in high school but professional football as well. And then the last one is probably the best one, the legendary Bob Tigno, 6 state championship rings, 55 years of experience. The stories he has is completely, they're just unbelievable. He knows more football than I'll forget when I'm all said and done with it. He works with our middle linebackers, does a fantastic job. So learning from these guys as a young defensive coach is just incredible. I learned so much this past year in just 1 year working with those guys, and I've had great mentors along the way. that's kind of what brought me to where I am.
Would you say that during the time since you were JV coach of Berlin and then kind of just went through the steps, that the way you viewed defense back then has changed now in 2020?
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it. You pick up so many things from so many different people. I'm a much different coach today than I was 8 years ago at Berlin High School. You learn so much from so many different people and from the kids and having so many different experiences. So yeah, absolutely.
What kind of defense, like what was your, because obviously everything changes, you kind of, over time, almost like as you grow as a young man or a young woman, you're going to change the way you think, the way you talk, the way you speak, and so forth as you get older. For you, how did you view a defense when you were first starting out at Berlin? And then what has changed now? Is it the way you look at the spread offense, which is now a big time thing, or is it just kind of an overall perspective?
Well, something when I first started out, I wanted to attack a lot, meaning just blitz everybody, play a whole lot of man to man. Really loved doing that, and that's kind of the way I started things off when I first started coaching defense. And Coach Levesque was someone who taught me how to really just adapt to what the offense is doing. Defense is all about making sure that you're in a position to stop what the offense does and then worry about what they might do. And that's something Coach Capodice would preach as well. That's something that I've kind of evolved along the way. That's something that I've heard universally from really every defensive coach I've ever worked with. What else I've changed is really how I communicate with kids. How to teach kids is something I learned a lot from Coach Tigno at Glastonbury, and that's something where I found a lot of growth this past year.
Now, because the way defenses are, you can make them very elaborate and make them almost hard for, even the average football player to be able to get. Is your defense a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? Is it something where you can give it to a young football player and he can digest it very easily? Or is it something where he needs to be in the system for at least a year to really kind of get a grasp of what you want to do as a defensive coordinator?
Ultimately, I'd say that depends on the kid, but for the most part, I'd say it takes probably about half a season to grasp it fully. Ultimately, it's my job as a coach to implement things slowly, teach, with a good progression. And that's really where I felt we did a good job at Glastonbury this year. We started off the season relatively strong, running simple stuff, and then we were able to expand what we did as the season went onward. So once you establish your base, your foundation, you can build off that, and that's kind of how our defensive system rolls.
Now, is it the language? Is it the hand signals? Is it the communication? What is it that kind of takes, in your opinion, about a half a season?
I think just reading keys, learning how to read keys in the secondary, in the box for the linebacker position too. Getting kids to react to what the offense is doing is, in my opinion, the toughest thing to coach on the defensive side of the ball. So for a young kid, typically I would say it takes them half a season to really master it and get really good at it.
As a defensive coordinator, I alluded to earlier about how defenses have to kind of adjust to the lack of rules going for them because everything is towards offense, the spread. I'm sure you love that left and right. So, the way that you see offense is changing, have you kind of changed as far as the way that you kind of look at a defense? Because as you said earlier, you kind of, in some ways, have morphed to whatever the offense is giving. You're going to show your defense that formation rather than I'm just going to blitz every time and then whatever happens, happens.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, ultimately, defenses change as the offenses change. I mean, we have to stop whatever they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time, you have to find that balance of are we stopping what they're doing, and are our kids good at this? If I'm throwing a defense on the field and our kids can't handle what's going on, that's on me as a coach to make that adjustment. So all defensive coaches have to find that balance, and ultimately, I think we did a pretty good job of that last year in Glastonbury.
Yeah, no, I've been able to watch a lot of the film, just like kind of, recapping of games that were recorded from last year. And the one thing I noticed with Glastonbury was it seemed like you alluded to, the second half of the season on, the defense looked like it was becoming more formidable, where it looked like they were working better. I mean, I understood at the beginning of the season you guys were strong, but it just looked like the comfortability with the defense was better, and the communication looked like it was a lot more transpiative as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. Beginning of the year, we had some strong showings, kept things easy. We had a good game against Manchester, came back and beat a really good Connor team and held them to 0 points in the second half. So those two games were really fun, and we saw a lot of growth. We had a young team last year, played quite a few sophomores and juniors, a lot of kids who it was their first time playing varsity football ever. So I saw a tremendous amount of growth from just about every single one of the kids on the defensive side of the ball. And that's a compliment to our coaches. That's a compliment to our kids. Our kids have outstanding work ethic, great character. I believe our future is really bright.
Is there ever a point during a game where, because you always have the offense and you have the defense. So when a game starts, you guys are usually on separate sides. But obviously, you guys view the game, even though if you're best friends, you view the game differently. So are there parts, or was there a game, or has there been times where, I don't want to say there's yelling, but just because of that competitive drive, there's going to be bickering. There's going to be, hey, we should do this. No, we should do that, because you view the game a little bit differently being a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, well, I try not to get into that, especially. I've worked with some great offensive coaches and guys that have called great games, and Eric Hennessy is one of the best ones out there. So my personal preference is to focus on what I'm doing on defense and focus on what we have to adjust to on our side of the ball. So really, whatever they're doing on offense, I have complete faith in them. I have complete faith in our kids, and I would never really mid-game go up to a coach and say, hey, this is what we should run on offense. I would never expect them to do that to me on defense either. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, we keep ourselves separate.
Yeah, I've seen it happen quite a bit during my travels. I've seen a defensive coordinator walk to the offensive coordinator. I've seen it all. That's the only reason why I asked. But that's good though, because you have the confidence in the offense, and if for some reason the offense is struggling, you are already prepared because you have the necessary confidence to be able to be ready for a situation if the offense, can't score any points in the first half,
Right.
has three straight 4-and-outs, 3-and-outs, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my opinion is every coach has to focus on their particular job. Every player has to focus on their job. And if defensive guys are worried about what the offense is doing or vice versa, then, things aren't going to work right on your side of the ball. So my opinion is just stick, kind of like Bill Belichick, do your job, stick to what you're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of worked for him. I mean, he's won a couple
Yeah.
Super Bowls, right?
He's had a little success.
Hey, so another question I want to ask you too about defense is, for me, I love to be able to be in the room or be in a defensive, if there's a defensive day and the coach is drawing up plays and he's doing all the cool stuff. I like that. But for other coaches, they like to be able to go on the field and see it executed. For you, what do you like?
I mean, I love to do both. Of course, the ultimate goal is to get it executed on the field. But yeah, I love everything about coaching defense. I love the chalk talk. I love the film. I love building that rapport with the kids and teaching them on the field. I love everything about it. Being on the board is something. When I was at Coggin and initially hired by Steve Croce, we would spend about an hour every day after practice, and he would just challenge me schematically every single day. If the offense does this, what are you going to do? If they come out in this formation, they make this motion, whatever it may be. And he's the one who kind of taught me how to make quick adjustments and challenged me mentally. That helped me grow a lot as a coach. Eric Becker challenged me as a teacher. So actually making sure that the defense is executing on the field. He was really kind of on my back a little bit about making sure that we got that done, until finally we built some pretty good defenses at Coggin, and he kind of just allowed me to do my own thing and gave me a lot of freedom. And Eric Hennessy does the same thing in Glastonbury. So I love every aspect of coaching. I love being, in the room, on the field, whatever it may be.
As you adjust, you're obviously doing a lot of research and trying to pick up as much as you can information. I guess the question I have for you next is, there's a saying, and I heard it maybe like a week ago, and I forgot the guy's name, so I apologize, whoever it was. He said that if you take something from one person, it's stealing. But if 10 people take it from somebody, it's research. So for you, is there ever a point where you watch, I don't know if you watch college football, I'm sure you do, but if you
Of
watch
course.
like, who's your favorite team?
Michigan.
Michigan. Okay. Oh, perfect.
Yep.
So if you're watching Michigan, or if you're watching another school from the Big Ten, is
Yep.
there any, Ohio State, because they seem like they breed defense every single year. They have 4 or 5 dudes drafted in the first round. It's ridiculous.
Unfortunately, they do.
It's crazy, and I feel bad because Michigan, Ohio State,
Yeah.
But anywho, back on track. So, is there anything that you kind of take from watching those defenses? Because even Michigan, they've won 8 or 9 games every year since Harbaugh's been there for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to pick up all the time schematically. I've had the chance to listen to Don Brown speak at multiple clinics and on multiple occasions. So hearing from a guy like that is just incredible. I mean, that guy eats, sleeps, breathes football like nobody else I've ever met in my life. And, just there's always something to pick up. If you're watching any position or if they run some sort of blitz and maybe, you raise an eyebrow and say, hey, I kind of like that. And in my opinion, watching college football is the best for any high school coach because the game is not quite as fast as the NFL, so you get a chance to see similar schematics. And of course, those guys are very accessible during clinics, so you could actually ask them questions about something you saw during a game. And so Don Brown at Michigan has been probably the defensive coach in college I watched the most, and I've picked up a few things from him for sure.
Not revealing the trade secrets, what have you picked up exactly?
A couple blitzes at clinics, but specifically, he would go over a lot of man-to-man stuff. Picked up a couple things there, few blitzes, like I just said. So little tiny things like that. In my opinion, you go to a clinic, you pick up tiny things from each and every coach that you see, and
Mhm.
ultimately you leave with a lot.
Over time too, when you look at it, being able to pick up different things and try to implement them, has there been some things that have worked and other things that you're kind of like, okay, maybe I should wait until maybe year 2, year 3, because the players maybe just can't understand it, or it's just not working against X, Y, and Z, so I just need to scrap it for now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's things that I've done that have not worked at all. There's things that I've done from day one that I still work on to this day with our kids. So I mean, ultimately, it depends on what works for your kids and what stops the offense. So if our kids aren't good at it, first and foremost, we're not going to run it. But like I said earlier, every coach has to find that balance. But yeah, definitely experiment a lot in practice. Try new things during team periods. See what we could do during live scrimmages. And if something works, we keep it in the back pocket and we call it during the right time.
Now, speaking of the players, let's talk about a couple of them because obviously, why would I talk offense with you? You're not an offensive guy. You're a defensive guy. So let's start out with the linebackers because let's bang out these two names because they're the hardest ones, and you had to give me the hardest ones. First one is outside linebacker Kyle Regent. Tell me about him.
Kyle is an outstanding player. Last year was his first year playing varsity. All conference outside backer was one of our strong suits in the box and stopping the run. Real good blitzer off the edge. Tough kid. Really hard-nosed, tough kid. Wrestler in the off season. Just great kid, hard worker, great character level. What he's really as an outside backer, he's a little undersized, but he's so good technically. He understands angles. He understands attacking the throwing shoulder of the quarterback on a blitz. He's great at dropping and passes. Really smart football player and a pleasure to coach.
And his fellow teammate Luke Vredenberg. Love that name, by the way.
Yeah, it's a great name. That's a football name in my opinion,
Oh yeah.
and he certainly plays like it. Luke is as good a name in my opinion, and
Oh yeah.
he certainly plays like it. Luke is as good as any middle linebacker in the state of Connecticut, in my opinion. 2-year starter at Glastonbury. He's been 2 years all conference. Our unquestioned leader on defense. When I think of Luke, I just think of lead by example. Not only is he a great linebacker, great at shedding blocks, one of the best tacklers I've ever coached, but the kid is just an unbelievable leader. He'll go to the JV games and pick up the field after the games. He'll fill up the water. He'll bring it out to practice. He'll bring it back in. He's never the guy that's pointing, telling kids what to do. He's never that kind of leader. He's always the dude that's just doing it. And, everyone on our roster really looks up to Luke. He's the centerpiece of our defense, outstanding football player, and an even better kid. Straight A student, too, just total package. Absolute stud. Love coaching him. He's a great kid.
That's great to hear that a player who's that good and is that well established is not all about himself and kind of views himself as just another player. And that's great to hear. Those two linebackers must make it easier for the guys in the back. So
Oh,
safety
yeah.
Ethan Taylor is another one that I want to talk about.
Ethan was a middle linebacker at first, and then we backed him up to the strong safety position. Learned the position really quick and had a great year. I think he had 2 interceptions for us. Was one of our leading tacklers in the secondary, and as a junior, just had an outstanding season at a new position. Another smart kid, just really, really coachable. Just a yes coach guy. You tell him to do something, it's yes coach automatically. Never leaves anything less than his best on the field. Really active learner, asks questions all the time. Just an outstanding kid, like all of our kids at Glastonbury. I could say this about a majority of the kids, but Ethan, what really sets him apart is his ability to really bear down and learn new things and be open to learning as much about football as possible.
So I'm assuming that Keegan Combs is probably the same way as Taylor, Regent, and Bradenberg, correct?
Yep. Yeah. Another great character kid, great athlete, really fast. Last year was also his first year playing varsity football. Really good corner, great tackler. Just he could run with anybody. He's as athletic as any kid that I've ever coached. And just another great kid, straight A student, hard worker, great learner, another leader by example. I'm lucky to coach him and all four of those guys and the rest of the kids at Glastonbury. We have great character on our team. We have great young kids coming up, and I really believe with those four leading the way, along with the support system that they'll have, I think our future is really bright.
As I said prior in the interview about how, your fingerprints are all over this defense as far as the way they play, the way they act, the way that they kind of go about during their game styles and game plans and such. And you can really tell that. And I think the biggest compliment to a coach is when what you're preaching is shown in games. And I think if that is shown each and every game throughout an entire season, because we know about the dog days of football once you get into the mid and end point, depending on with injuries and so on, I think that's probably the biggest compliment to you on that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, that's the goal, and it's a great compliment to our assistant coaches as well. And I couldn't do things, the way I would like to do them without those mentors that I had, Coach Stout and Coach Tiggs, and the rest of our defensive coaches, really guiding, me and our kids through the season. So I feel I'm in a great position. Kids are great, coaches are great. And ultimately, we hope to see that all emulate on the field because we feel we're building something special. We feel, we're coming a long way as a defense, and hopefully the results, they will show.
And I'm sure that at least I haven't seen the offensive too much. I haven't watched any film on that, but defensively, I think the pieces are there for Glastonbury to have something special, especially with this young core that they have. I think there could be something brewing here. I mentioned a couple of days ago because I talked to the foreign coach, and I mentioned how to him that there was even though the record didn't show, they were 1-9 their first year, 5-5 the next. The numbers got better, the scores got better, so there was something there to be like, okay, I think we're projecting up. I think the same could be said for Glastonbury as well, at least on the defensive side, because I don't want to be arrogant and say I know about the offense because I don't.
I hope you're right about that. No doubt.
Well, Coach, I don't know where the time went, but we're just about out of time. But I really do appreciate you coming on and being able to, show your knowledge about Glastonbury, the football team, the defense, and you're always welcome to come back on anytime.
Hey, thank you, Chris. It's great to be on here. You do great work, and keep it up. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Now, wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.